welcome back to the Angry Dave podcast. This is an episode of Dave's Thoughts. Today I'm going to talk about 20 things that I've learned from being an attorney. I thought that I was going to add some of these types of episodes where I talk about things I've learned and bring people on to talk about things that they learned in their profession or in their life or things in their life that happened to them. Sort of like as an educational kind of a thing. I thought it would be interesting for people to hear perspective from different types of people. So anyway, let me get started. So the first thing that I wrote down that I learned from being an attorney, and I guess this probably started more in law school. I got to law school, and I wasn't really convinced that I was smart enough to be there. And I don't know why that is, I guess. I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to educated people as a kid. So I was a little, not sure of myself, I guess, at that time. I did pretty well in college. I did obviously well enough to get into a good law school. So, I probably should have been confident, but I wasn't yet. When I got there, I realized that I might not have been the smartest person there, but I certainly wasn't close to not the smartest person there. So, every person that is educated or has a label, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever it is, GM, chief executive, is not necessarily as smart as that label says that they are. So, be confident in yourself and in your abilities and in your smartness. I have found that people in all walks of life have intelligence. The amount of intelligence or your ability to problem solve is not necessarily related to your education or your financial status. I guess that's the one thing that I've learned. Number two is, and it's probably the thing that I would tell most lawyers, to find out who you are, right? By the time you get to be a lawyer, you should be close to knowing who you are and to be yourself. Don't try to be the Perry Mason lawyer or some kind of, lawyer that you see on TV or in a movie. It doesn't work. If you're not authentic, it's not going to work for you. And I think that probably transcends into every walk of life and every profession. Authenticity is the way to go. So ask questions like you would ask a question to your friend. Talk to people like you would talk to anybody. It just works. It works with your staff. It works with judges. People like people that are confident in themselves and understand who they are and are being true to themselves. The only time it really doesn't work is if you're a true asshole. Then that's going to come out. It's still probably the best way to be, because at least you're being yourself and people know what to expect, and it's easier to deal with. And you'll probably still get better results with people by at least being your natural asshole self. But, that's the only time. I have seen people that are just fucking completely banana hammocks out there. We all know them. We all make fun of them. In the law profession, there's those 3 or 4 people that that are just fucking crazy town when you have to deal with them. And they're probably being their natural self, but they need lots of therapy. But in any way, for most people, being yourself really helps and really works, especially with the questioning part when you're doing depositions or anything like that if you're a litigator. Asking questions like you are talking in a conversation is always the best way. Being robotic or trying to trick people, those types of things really don't work. You always get many more bees with honey than you do with trying to be some kind of like detective kind of, cross-examination kind of a thing. That has to play a part of it, but like especially when you're doing a deposition, right, you're trying to get as much information as you can. So being likable and affable and natural is going to go much more of a long way. because once you try to start being like the dickhead lawyer, people bottle up and they're going to give you less, and they're going to actually listen to their attorney and only answer the question you ask and be difficult and not give you the extra things that people often give you when they feel comfortable. My number 3 thing that I wrote down was to treat your staff as equals, because they are. Everybody has in a law firm or at work has a job to do. It's not any less important than your job. And you need them just as much as they need you. And trust me, if your secretary or your paralegal doesn't like you, they can make your goddamn life miserable. So be nice to them. Treat them with respect. Treat them like they matter. Treat them like their job is as important as your job, because it is. And that goes, again, transcends in life. Your waiter, your waitress, your bartender, the school crossing guard. Everybody matters. Everybody's doing their own job and has to play a part in the world. And there's no reason to be an asshole to anybody because you're allegedly in a higher station or you get to say yes or no. You know, in a professional environment, somebody has to make the decision. Somebody has to give the direction. But that doesn't mean just because you're the decision maker that other people's opinions don't mean something, or that those people don't mean something, because you're just as replaceable as anybody. Again, more importantly, if you don't treat those people with respect, they will find ways to fuck you. I've seen it a million times. And it's actually quite amusing when it happens to the people that deserve it. Number 4, the best lawyers, despite what the TV might tell you, are people that are reasonable and respectful. You have to get along. You have to get along with your peers, with your adversary. You have to get along with judges. You have to get along with court staff. Because you're going to see them more often than you're going to see your client. And being respectful matters. Being reasonable matters. People wanting to go against you because they know that they can count on you being a reasonable human being. And, not making outlandish demands or outlandish claims matters. It will get you much further. When you need a continuance because, your kid has a ball game that you want to go see, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to get if you're not a fucking complete bag of dicks. So you want a lawyer that is a reasonable person, that seems likable and knowledgeable, obviously smart and feisty, but reasonable. You need that. And if you want this, like these bulldog lawyers on TV and we fight the insurance companies, we beat the shit out of them, that shit's not real for the most part. I mean, again, there's a few people out there that they do get results from being the most annoying person in the room, but they get no help ever. So for those cases that they get the extra money because nobody wants to deal with the unreasonable person, there's going to be 10 cases where people fight to death with those people because they can't stand them. So again, if you want a little bit more out of your case, or maybe it goes a little faster, find a reasonable lawyer. Trust me, it'll get you better results. For my time in litigating, I did mostly workers' comp in my career, and I was on both sides of it. I've been on the side of the insurance company and been on the side of the injured worker. And the thing that I can say with certainty is that more often than not, people exaggerate. Now, that's just true from every perspective. When people internalize things, it always becomes worse or more dramatic than it actually was. I mean, it's not always the case, but more often than not, it's the case that they exaggerate. From a claimant's perspective, I don't think that most injured workers are lying when they get hurt. They don't lie about the injury. I do think that many of them get caught up in a system that benefits attorneys and it benefits medical professionals, and they get reinforced the fact that they're injured, and they get that like injured victim kind of mindset over time because they keep getting reinforced. You're hurt, you're hurt, you're hurt, you can't work, you can't work. And that's what I see, that once people get into the system, they are slow to move back into work or into that normal environment. So from an insurance company or employer perspective, that's why it's really super important that you have good light duty programs, because keeping people engaged in work and engaged with their coworkers and feeling like they're normal is a much better alternative than putting them out in the pasture for 6 months, where they're just going to therapy 3 times a week and sitting home and sort of ostracized from the world because it fucks with your head. That becomes your job, is to be injured, and you don't want it. I've seen it over and over again. And that's, what I've seen is that just people sort of, I guess they would call it malingering, right? People malinger out there once they get hurt. Number 6, if your lawyer ever tells you to put your life on hold for your case, fire him immediately, or her. I had an instance one time where I was working as a claimant's attorney, and the place I was working at the time got very angry at me because one of our clients asked me if, they said they found a new job. What should I do? Should I go back to work? How will it affect my case? Well, in workers' comp in Pennsylvania, it's a wage law state, right? So most of the money is made if you're not working, right? It's wage replacement. That's the way people value cases. And that's the way you get paid, by not working. However, if I told my client, if you can find a job and you're making money, I can still get you money for the time that you missed out of work. It certainly will be less money if you go back to work right now. But it's better for you because there's no workers' compensation case in the world that's going to make you more money than you actually going out and working. In fact, it really stunts your growth. Like in Pennsylvania, you don't get annual raises while you're on workers' comp. You stick with whatever you were making at the time, and you get basically 2/3 of that amount. So if you don't go back to work, you're actually stunning your growth, and you stay stagnant. So my recommendation always would be to move on with your life as fast as you can, and I'll get you the amount of money I can for that time that you were disabled. Well, a lot of attorneys don't play that way. And if they don't have your best interest in mind over their pocketbook, or their wallet, then you should fire them. They are not worth anything. If an attorney values their money or their that one singular case over your life, get rid of them immediately. They're pieces of garbage. There are a lot of people out there that don't do that. The last firm I was at, Krasno Onward Angel, I'll give them a shout out because they really always did tell people to do what is best for them. So there are people out there that do it. Number 7, I wrote, relationships matter with judges, staff, court staff, other attorneys, anybody in the legal system. The justice system may be fair, but it is not equal. When it is at its best, it is fair. It is certainly never equal. If an attorney went to law school with a judge and they're friends outside of court, or they like each other, that's going to matter. If you have a relationship with the other attorney and you guys are reasonable to each other, that's going to matter. The court staff likes you, that's going to matter. If your court reporter likes you, it's going to matter. You want somebody that is engaged in that area of practice of law, right? You want a specialist. You don't want a jack of all trades. If you go and get a workers' comp attorney that does 17 other things, I urge you that probably isn't the person to go to. Now, one or two other things, obviously, they could probably swing that, but you want a specialist. And you want somebody that knows the judges, that knows the other attorneys, that knows the court staff, that knows the court reporters, that knows the ins and outs of the culture in that particular courthouse. Trust me, it fucking matters. In criminal court, the statistics show that the one thing that would determines your outcome more than anything is the lawyer that you pick. So be smart about it. Ask for referrals from other people, other lawyers. Find a specialist. Find somebody that's not a bag of dicks that fights everything. Again, that might look good on TV, but from a practical standpoint, nobody likes the asshole. And the judges get annoyed by it because it clogs up their docket. It makes for a longer day for them. And people want that person to fail. It's a natural thing because nobody likes dealing with the dickhead. Again, it might look good on TV, but from a practicality standpoint, it's not good. You want somebody who's engaged and is, part of the culture of that particular area of law in your particular location. Number 8, I wrote down, cover your ass. Early in my career, I was working for an insurance defense firm, and a lot of what you do is you write summaries and stuff, and you ask for things, and you do that in letter form or whatever in emails. And I had an adjuster that was telling everyone that I was a piece of shit, that I didn't do anything. And thankfully, I was smart enough even then, very early on in my career, to email everything. And I had a string of emails that showed that I was asking for the thing that I said I was asking for. And it really taught me very early on to always cover your ass in life and in business. Always do the follow-up email. Always make sure you document the conversation. Pieces of shit that are lazy always like the phone call. Now, again, the phone call makes sense in a lot of ways, or the personal interaction. We shouldn't always get away from that, but always follow up with something that can document that conversation or that decision. Because people that don't like to document are people that always seem to tend to forget when something goes wrong that they made that decision and they told you to do that thing that way. I once saw an executive from an insurance company get somebody taken off their cases because they said that person did something that they said not to do. And that individual didn't get fired from his job because the person was a fucking quack. The only reason he didn't get fired from his job is because he had the email chain where the lady said that he could do the thing that she said he wasn't supposed to do. Now, he still had to be off her files because she was a lunatic. However, he at least saved his job. Again, people, when their back's against the wall, they will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, to protect themselves. That's a truism. People will, not everybody. There are people out there with integrity, but you will run into people in your life, in, your regular life and your professional life, that will just flat out lie. and pretend that they don't remember conversations and try to fucking throw you directly under the tractor trailer. And the fuck the bus, they'll throw you under the tractor trailer, ruin your life, try to get you fired. So always, always send a follow-up email. And even where I've gotten in trouble in the past, because some people really don't like when you're good at documenting things, fuck them. Fuck them. And especially when you tell people when they're doing something wrong or they're breaking the law or they have to, change this policy that, is not right for the company, document it. It makes people uncomfortable, but you're also setting yourself up for the retaliation claim when they fire you because you uncovered something that they were doing wrong. And then, everybody gets in trouble when that thing, blows up. In any event, just again, always send a follow-up email. Always document in some way. That is, and it's not just documenting, your file in particular. It's documenting the conversation with that individual. Always. Trust me. It will come back to haunt you if you don't. Don't be the person that just has the private telephone conversation. Don't be that person. The one thing I've learned professionally is that, and I'll give one of my early bosses, Steve Leva, the shout out for teaching me that, is that from a law perspective, if you sit that case file in the corner and say, I'm going to get to it, the issue never goes away where you got to go get to it. But the longer it sits in the corner, the harder it is to get to it. So just do the work as the work comes. Don't put it off, because there's always going to be a reason to put it off. And once that file or once that thing sits in the corner in your mind, it's going to stay there, and it becomes more of a problem, and then you don't get it done, or it's the last minute and you're rushing and you're anxiety driven. So just get it done. Do the work as it comes. Get it off your plate and move on. I'm not great at multitasking, so I like to finish things one thing at a time. Everybody has their system, but have a system in place, and the system can't be that one thing sits in a corner and you'll get to it when you get to it, because you'll never get to it. And it's really that's true. Number 10, and this is just a tip to any lawyer out there or anybody who has to answer questions or give a speech, public speaking, those types of things. Never write your speech or all your questions out. If you do that, you are going to naturally stare at that written document. Now, unless you have a teleprompter in front of you, like a presidential speech, then, it becomes easy, because then you're just reading the speech. However, if you're trying to engage the audience, or you're trying to ask questions to a person and listen to what they say, it's much better to have an outline. You outline the areas that you're going to go into. Be prepared enough to know enough information where you can move through those areas. But you don't want to have the exact questions or the exact thing you're going to say written, because you will stare at it. And particularly in a questioning situation, if you have those questions written out, you're going to stare at those questions, be relying on those questions, and not hear what people say. And to be a good questioner with your kids, in a deposition, in a courtroom, you have to be a good listener. Because often people will give you things that you never thought of. And your ability to jot that down and to follow up with those questions and to move into that area is critical to being really good at questioning, even interrogations and those types of things. But don't write your questions out, because you will get bogged down and you will miss things. Have the outline, be able to move off of your exact questioning, go into those different areas that people give you, then come back to your outline, to that area of questioning again, and start over from where you left off. But give yourself the ability to go off script. It's really, really, really important as a litigator, as a questioner, and as a public speaker. And the public speaker is really just engaging the audience more so than, being able to go off on different tangents, whatever. I guess if a question and answer, speaking engagement would be similar to the questioning. But my point with public speaking is that you don't want to be staring at your speech. It's much more engaging when you're looking up at the audience and you're confident in the material that you're talking about. So, just have an outline to go through the different points that you want to hit is my point there. Number 11, let people talk. I sort of hit on this a little bit with the way you question. But again, in depositions, if you're talking to your kids, ask open-ended questions. Don't assume answers. Listen. And if people go off on tangents, let them talk. Because you are going to get much more from them than you ever thought you could. They're going to try to head off questions that you didn't think to ask. So just let them talk. As long as it's, on topic, let them talk. Reel them back in. And again, this is a deposition situation, like when you're gathering information, or like an interview situation where in an HR setting, or a home setting where you're trying to get information from your kid. Let them talk. Let them give as much information. Don't cut them off because it's not the exact question that you asked. Again, have that outline, be able to move from topic to topic and come back. Because again, people think they're smarter than you, or think, especially if you're likable, they will try to help you along. They won't listen to their attorney and just ask the question. I've been in many a deposition where I had to stop depositions because my client, started to like the other attorney and just start trying to be helpful. As a client, you're a horrible client when you do that. But as an attorney, that's what you want when you're questioning somebody. You want somebody to feel like they want to help you along, or if they just want to be a blabbermouth, let them be a blabbermouth, and just jot down notes as they talk, and go into those different lines of questionings that you may not have thought about. Let them talk. Let them talk, because they will also contradict themselves when they're liars. Number 12, appearing likable and easygoing is an advantage. So it's just part of my whole career. I've sort of, a lot of my career, I guess, as an attorney, I felt like people underestimated me because despite my Angry Dave mantra, I was fairly easygoing as an attorney and likable. I would never attack somebody's client. I would never be overly aggressive in my questioning. I would just be sort of matter of fact and just, a bit affable. And that lends to people underestimating you, or think that you're not prepared, or thinking that your questioning is not as important or poignant or helpful to you, me, helpful to you meaning me, as they may think so, because, apparently, a lot of people think that you need to be a dick to sort of get what you need, and you don't. You just don't. There's been many times where I completely blindsided people with a brief at the end of the case, or, closing argument sort of. So in workers' comp, you don't do closing arguments. You do briefs at the end of the case where you send a legal argument into the judge to argue your case. And I would ask questions, and they wouldn't think anything of it. And I got the answers that I needed to prove my legal point, and they were completely blindsided by it because they underestimated my style. So, again, being underestimated is of serious value. Let it happen. It's okay. It's okay to blindside people. You could be nice to them and still get your point, and still be the, strong advocate that you need to be. Number 13, juries and judges want the big picture. They want you to make it easy for them. They getting bogged down in minute details and complicated arguments is generally going to be the way to lose a case. People want simple stories and simple truths. A plus B equals C. That's what they want. Focus on trying to make that easy story to digest. The easier the story, the more believable it is, the easier it is to win your case. Getting lost in complicated medical jargon and that kind of stuff is great for like a legal argument and a brief, but it doesn't usually win the day. I mean, honestly, what usually wins the day is whether, in a workers' comp setting where you don't have a jury, it's depending on the judge, it's whether the judge likes your client or not, whether your client's believable. Usually in a workers' comp case in particular, right, and in a lot of these medical-based cases, you'll have one, the insurance company doctor saying one thing, the plaintiff's doctor saying the exact opposite thing. So, that equals out generally, unless you have a real bad doctor, but generally it equals out. And it comes down to the witnesses and whether they're believable or not. So, again, trying to make it simple, right? Not this super complicated, winding story where, you have to be Inspector Clouseau to figure it all out. Those stories generally don't work. So your theory of the case should try to be as simple as possible, is my recommendation and what I've learned over the years. Number 14, don't get caught up with who is lying. And this goes for like HR investigations and that kind of things. Get the facts. Gather the facts and evaluate the facts as they come. It's hard to tell whether someone is lying or not. There's people I've found that are being 100% honest that appear to be liars because they're nervous or they're distrusting or whatever. And then there's people that appear to be totally honest, and they're fucking full of shit, and you wind up finding out that they're complete liars, but you believe the hell out of them. It's really hard. People are good liars, and distrusting people are bad truth tellers. So don't get caught up in that, and don't think that you have this intuition to tell who a liar is, because in my estimation, I feel like I'm pretty good with reading people and just generally, but I've never been, certainly not nearly near 100% of telling who is a liar and who isn't. I've been surprised many times over 21 years, even now, being in-house at a company, I'm still surprised at who lies and when all the facts come in and who's lying and who isn't. Really, sometimes the people that seem to be the biggest pieces of shit are completely honest. They're just distrusting and, miserable. And miserable people, you tend to distrust them. But just because they're miserable doesn't mean they're lying, right? And the same thing is like affable people can get away with murder. I mean, really, they can. I've seen it lots of times, super likable people they'll lie through their teeth, and smile at you, and you'll never know. You'll never know the difference. 15, respect and deference are two different things. So early in my career, I used to try to be sort of respectful to older attorneys, and when I was still finding my footing, and I found that respect really was turning into some kind of deference, until one time where an attorney tried to take advantage of that deference, and I told him to go fuck himself, and he backed off immediately. I said, "All right, dude, take it easy. You can go fuck yourself." And he backed off. But again, so when you're in these professions or in anything in the world, you should be respectful to each other. But nobody deserves more respect than you as an adult human in any interaction. We all deserve respect. It's the same thing with staff and those things that I talked about earlier. But you don't have to devalue yourself because somebody has been around longer or, has a medal on their chest or what the fuck ever. If you're in a situation where each of you needs something, you're equal. And that's it. Be respectful of that person's humanity and demand that equal respect for yourself. And when you get there in a profession, it's a really nice place to be once you're confident enough to be there. For me, it took a little bit of time. It took somebody really trying to take advantage of me, really, to really realize what I was doing to myself. And I was giving people the upper hand because I was trying to be like this noble lawyer. I don't know what the hell I was trying to do. But it wasn't working. And so I stopped doing it. And I recommend that you never do it. But again, you don't have to be, a brash little dickhead who thinks he knows everything. But you should be reasonable, but expect people to treat you as their equal. Not, I don't give a fuck if you've been doing this 72 years and this is my first case. We're equal. We're doing the same fucking thing. Number 16, it's easy to compromise your integrity. Don't do it. There's going to be many times in your life and your career where it's easy to take a shortcut or to make that little bit of a lie in a case or in a thing to just make it easier for you or to better your winning percentage or whatever, to get a little bit more out of a case. Don't do it. No one case or one thing is worth a lifetime of reputation. Because the one time you get caught lying, you never recover from that with that person. Then it trickles down, right? That person tells everybody at their law firm or everybody they know, and then you become the guy they can't trust, that's going to lie. You don't want to be that person in anything, but particularly in law where you have the same group of adversaries over and over again. The things you say have to mean something. When you go to court and you talk to a judge, the judge has to trust. First of all, you have a duty to tell the truth to the court, right? It's part of your oath as a lawyer. But there's a lot of people don't do it. Oaths are funny things. But when you talk to a judge, your duty is to be honest. But just from a practical standpoint, you need to be. You can't lie. You have to put things in the best light that you can for your client and yourself. That's part of your duty. That's not undermining your duty. However, you can't lie. You can't lie to people. You can't lie to judges. It's not worth it. It will ruin your reputation, and you will be less effective because of it. And again, when you walk away, it's going to be, when you walk away from the profession and judges say it was always a pleasure to be around you, other attorneys say that they're going to miss going against you, that's a positive thing. Trust me, that's a positive legacy, to walk away with your integrity intact. You don't want to be the other person. You don't want to be the person that they talk about. That guy, that dude was a piece of shit. You could never fucking, believe a word he said. It's not worth it. Number 17, always be prepared. It's always your case. You're never, quote, I'm just covering. Early in my career, I was in front of a judge, and I watched a young kid go up, and the judge asked something about the case, and the kid said, or the attorney said, Judge, I'm not sure of that, I'm just covering. Well, this judge lost her ever-loving mind on the kid and told him, you're an attorney, you're not just covering, this is your case right now. You need to be prepared. And that's what I tell you in life and in anything else. If you're taking care of it, be prepared. Be prepared to do what you need to do to answer the questions that you need to answer. You're never half-assing it. You never go in front of a judge with your pants down, not knowing things that you need to know about a case. If you're handling the case, talk to the handling attorney, look through the file, but never tell a judge, I'm just covering. Especially if your client's there. How does your client feel about that, buddy? Holy shit. But anyway, that was a great early lesson that I got to watch and not have to deal with my personal self. And I've seen older attorneys set younger attorneys up that way. Just tell the judge you're covering. And then I would go to them, don't do that. Don't ever tell a judge you're just covering. Be prepared. Be prepared to answer the questions that you're going to need to answer. Number 18, something I learned a little bit like midway through my legal career. I used to have, several court reporters that I would have quite often from companies that we would use. First of all, always be nice to your court reporter. Because when you get the transcript back, you're going to know if that court reporter liked you or not by the amount of ums that are in your transcript. Or when you ask a bad question, you start over, and then and they write the convoluted nonsense that you just said instead of just the question. So be nice to those people. They can make you look stupid. But the other thing is, that person sitting behind that machine listens to testimony all day long. They probably have a better read on people than you do, because that's all they do. All they do is legal depositions. All they do is transcribe court proceedings and those types of things. They're the expert. Use them. When you're done the deposition, ask them what they think. Get a feel for it. Because I think that they probably are as good as anybody, probably better than you, whether they could tell somebody's lying or inconsistencies or how that went for you, with your client or somebody else's client. So if you have that, cultivate those relationships and use them. And I guess that transcends too, right? It's not just in a courtroom setting, but the people that you interact with. Make relationships. Ask them their opinion. Right? They don't have to be at your station to have a valid opinion or have some input. So don't ever forget to use that. Number 19, the amount you make as a lawyer is often related to your connections or your sales ability rather than your lawyering. The people with the names on the billboards are the guys that sold the best or are the best marketers. They're not necessarily the best attorneys. Now, are they hiring the best attorneys? Sometimes. Sometimes not. It all depends. It's a mixed bag, and it's going to be a mixed bag at any law firm anyway, right? So you have good lawyers at some law firms and bad lawyers at the same law firm. So, again, your choice of lawyer is really going to matter in any case. But, the amount of money that you make is really tied to your connections and how you get business, right? It's not really tied to how great of a lawyer you are. there's a lot of great lawyers that are making mid-range money. I should, not bad money, but mid-range money, I would say. The guys that make the most are really the best salesmen. So, if a name's on a billboard, I would pretty much figure that person's probably not handling your case, most likely, and they had some kind of connection or just really great marketing. And number 20, the last thing, never represent yourself, ever, even if you're a lawyer. But particularly if you're not a lawyer. There's nothing that judges hate more than unrepresented plaintiffs or unrepresented defendants, for that matter. Just anybody unrepresented. It just throws a monkey wrench into the system. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're a pain in the ass, and you're probably not going to get what you want because you don't understand the system. It's somebody that never worked on an engine being told to fix an engine. It's complicated stuff. It's complicated for a reason because lawyers make it complicated so they can keep jobs. But you're not going to be able to represent yourself. Spend the money. The best thing that you could do is to get a lawyer. Get a good lawyer. And again, to that point, I had a friend recently who got a DUI. He got the best DUI lawyer in town, and he got him off. And really, the kid shouldn't have gotten off. But he knew the law inside and out and knew technicalities, and my buddy wins, gets a nice, expensive lesson, but he doesn't have a record. Because he hired a lawyer and spent the money and didn't represent himself. No great argument is going to win when you represent yourself because you have to be able to navigate the legal system. So, all right. That's all I got for now. My 20 things that I learned as a lawyer. I hope you enjoyed it. Till next time.